but it seems that right now on the internet, at least, people are sort of separated on, both sides of the aisle. It's like there's one side where it's like, okay, we're just going to do like the traditional school stuff, textbooks and learning your vocabulary and so on. And then on the other side of the aisle, there is you have the input people. It's all about input. Anything else that you try to do, any kind of deliberate learning, it's just not really a good use of your time. And so I wanted to talk about this because actually I'm going to, tomorrow I will have Bill Van Patten. I'm going to to do an interview with him, and I feel like he tends to be more on the input side, but I wanted to get your take on it because I read your book. I mean, one of your books. I think it was, the very short one, what every language learner needs to know to learn a language.
Right.
And input has is like 25% of the what you should do, right? The four strands. So
Yeah.
it seems more balanced, I suppose. Whereas if you listen to Stephen Krashen, for example, I get the feeling that if he had to put a number on it, it would be 80% or 90%. So, what do you think about the importance of input?
Well, I think when Steve's giving a talk, he probably puts 100% on that
Right, right.
side. It's Steve and I are good friends, and but we disagree fundamentally on this. But I also have a feeling that I'm not quite sure how serious he is about it these days. But still, it seems my point of view is that you need a balance, and that's the idea behind the four strands. That you should have a strand of input, a strand of output, and a strand of fluency, which are all related, which all involve language use. And that takes up 3/4 of the time, 1/4 for each of those three. And then you have a quarter of deliberate study and deliberate learning. And I'm very much in favor of input as a way of language learning, but it should make up about 1/4 of the course time. Rob Waring and I published a book not so long ago reviewing as much of the research on extensive reading as we could. And there's a lot of research really supporting the use of extensive reading. The research differs in quality a great deal. And so in the book, what we did was to pick a few studies which we thought were exemplary studies, where if you wanted to really convince somebody from an academic background that extensive reading was a good thing to do, you could then send them to these very well conducted and well reported studies. But there's also hundreds of other studies which reach the same conclusion. So I think input is really important, but once again, it's got to be in proportion. And so the strand of input involves listening input and reading input. And so extensive reading then fits into the reading input part of the course. Now, if you take extensive reading and then you look at fluency development, then fluency development also involves extensive reading, but really doing easy extensive reading. So then that boosts the amount of input in the course, because half of the fluency strand also involves input. I'm waiting for the day, which I hope is very soon, where we can actually adapt spoken texts and videos using AI in the same way that we adapt written texts to make graded readers. And so if someone took this conversation that we're having here and said, I'm going to run this through AI, and AI will replace the words beyond the first 1,000 words of English with words in the first 1,000 words of English, wherever it's possible. And so that people who know only 1,000 words can then listen to it as meaning-focused input, I think that would be fantastic. And I wouldn't mind at all if these changes were fairly noticeable changes, which indicated that this video has been doctored in some way. But it would just mean that someone listening to it with a very limited knowledge of English could actually listen to it in the same way they could read a graded reader or a simplified text or a simplified version of the interview. Now, I think the technology is there to do it. And for me, this is the next great frontier in language learning. the availability of adapted spoken visual text so that learners at all proficiency levels can then listen and read at the level which is most suitable for them.
Yeah, yeah. This sounds like a great business idea, actually. Some sort of ability to generate graded readers from authentic content.
No, graded listening
Oh,
material.
graded listening material. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, yeah. So that means, as I say, if someone said, "Well, we're having this interview, and I only know 500 words of English. Can you adapt this interview so I can listen to it and watch the
Right,
people
right.
talk?" And it's all mostly within the first 500 words of English.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little bit harder, but yeah, it sounds pretty good.
Well, I'm sure all the technology is there. I mean, we have the profiling technology and the word lists to indicate which of the words that would need to be changed, and we now have the ability, it seems, to be able to doctor pictures and spoken text, so it sounds like the person who's speaking when it really isn't. So I think it's all there. It's just got to come together. That's all.